Run! He shouted to Ian and Dad. Hello, Fantastic Peeps! My name is Rachel and I hope that you've had a great day so far. I want to say thank you so much for joining me today as we count down to Christmas together. We are already entering day 22 of our Disney Storybook Collection Advent Calendar series, so without further ado, let's jump right into today's story. Alright, our Advent Calendar is open up and we're going to go for day 22, which is right here below day 20. And we are going to be reading about Disney Pixar Onward. Have any one of you saw this movie before? I've just recently saw this and surprisingly, it got me. Actually, not surprisingly, all Pixar films always get me with a pile of tissue beside me with all my tears. Right, let's look at the description. In a world where magic is a thing of the past, two brothers discover that might not be the case after all. Together, they go on a journey that will change them both forever. I'm wondering if this is just covering the movie storyline, but let's get into it. In a world where magic had been replaced by technology, Ian Lightfoot was a shy teenage elf who lived with his mom, Laurel, big brother Barley, and their pet dragon Blazy. Ian and Barley's dad had passed away when the boys were very young. Ian missed his dad every day and wished he could talk to him for real. On Ian's 16th birthday, his mom had a surprise for him. Ian and Barley's dad had left a special gift for them, which was only to be opened when both the boys had turned 16. Inside was a real wizard staff, a rare phoenix gem, and a visitation spell. They would follow Ian and Barley to bring back their dad for one day only. Up in Ian's bedroom, the brothers tried the spell and suddenly a beam of light shot out of the staff. Then, their father's shoes and socks began to materialize, but Ian was struggling to hold the staff steady. Barley tried to help, but the gem exploded. They thought the spell had failed until they heard something rustling in the wardrobe. It was their dad, but only his bottom half. His legs staggered around and Ian was upset to see his father's confusion. Barley tapped out a rhythm on Dad's shoe, just like he'd done as a child. Dad tapped his foot in reply, then placed his foot on Ian's. He knew his sons were with him. Now, Ian and Barley had to find another phoenix gem to retry the spell before sunset. But first, they had to get a map, so they knew where to look. "We'll start at the place where all quests begin," said Barley, "the Manticore's Tavern." The Manticore was a legendary 1,000-year-old warrior. Ian had his doubts, but the three Lightfoot men piled into Jennifer, Barley's truck, and drove off. Along the way, Ian used old clothes to make an upper body for Dad. When they arrived at the tavern, they found it was now a family-friendly restaurant hosting birthday parties and karaoke. And the Manticore, now better known as Corey, was no longer the fearsome beast spoken about in legend. Barley asked Corey for the map, but she refused. Corey now believed quests were dangerous. This is Corey. Barley reminded Corey that she used to take risks and lived for adventure. Realizing she was living a lie, the Manticore cried out, "What have I become?" Then she blew fire around the tavern, burning everything modern. Suddenly, a flaming wooden beam started falling toward Dad. Using the staff, Ian was able to use a levitation spell and save him. On the menu, which was based on the original map, Barley found a clue that led to Raven's Point. So they jump in Juniper. On the way, they needed to get gas. As Ian was filling up the gas can, he heard Dewdrop, the leader of a motorcycle club of tough talking spirits called Pixie Dusters, arguing with Barley. Then, Dad accidentally bumped into the pixie dusters' motorbikes and they all fell over, like domino. The spirits were furious. Ian, Barley, and Dad jumped in Jennifer and managed to get away. However, they were soon pulled over by the police. Ian used a disguise spell to cloak himself and Barley in an image of Officer Bronco, their mom's boyfriend. But the spell came with a rule. If Ian lied, a part of the disguise would disappear. The plan worked until one of the officers called Barley a screw-up. When Ian disagreed, one leg vanished. With a heavy heart, Barley knew Ian had lied. Having got away from the police, Ian tried to explain that he didn't think his brother was a screw-up, but Barley knew magic didn't lie. Barley turned on the music in the van and got out. "I don't know how any of this stuff works," exclaimed Ian. "All I know is that everything we've done tonight has gone wrong." "It's gone wrong because you won't listen to me," replied Barley. Suddenly, Dad started dancing to the vibrations of the music. He strutted over to the boys and got them dancing too. With the tension broken, Barley said he wanted a chance to prove himself, and Ian agreed to do things his way. Meanwhile, worried about her sons, Laurel went to the burning tavern, where the Manticore told her about their quest. The tavern owner then remembered about the Phoenix Gem curse, which she had forgotten to mention to Barley and Ian. The only thing that would help against the curse was her enchanted sword, the Curse Crusher. They raced to the shop where the Manticore had pawned it and managed to get the sword back at an inflated price from the greedy owner, Grecklin. Back on the quest, Ian, Barley, and Dad had reached a statue of a raven. Barley realized that the clue wasn't leading them to Raven's Point. It was telling them to go where the ravens were pointing. Sure enough, when they looked in the direction the statue pointed, they could see another raven in the distance. Ian was impressed. Maybe his brother had been right all along. Following where the ravens were pointing, they eventually came to another raven that stood near a river. There was a loose stone on it, which Barley pulled out. The strange symbol on the stone gave him an idea. "We go to the end of the water and we'll find that Phoenix Gem," said Barley. Ian, Barley, and Dad followed the river into a cave. Using magic, Ian made a raft from one of Barley's cheese puffs. Along the way, Ian practiced other spells. He felt more confident that he would be able to perform the visitation spell again and finally meet his dad. At that moment, Barley shared a sad memory. When their dad was in hospital, Barley was too scared to go into his room to say goodbye. Barley sighed. "That's when I decided I was never gonna be scared again." Because him being scared cost him his last goodbye with his dad. The river ended at the entrance to the final gauntlet. Barley said the Phoenix Gem would be on the other side. They ran through the tunnel and entered a small chamber which started to fill with water. The boys guided Dad to a portal opening. They climbed through it into the sunlight above, but they discovered they were back in New Mushroom Town, right where they started. "No, that doesn't make sense," exclaimed Barley. "This had to be where the Phoenix Gem is. I followed my gut." Ian was crushed. He trusted his brother and it had got him nowhere. Ian walked away with Dad, leaving Barley alone. Ian sat on the cliff as the sun began to set and pulled out the list of things he had wanted to do with his father. He was about to scribble them all out when Ian realized something. He had already done them all, not with Dad, but with Barley. He thought about all the times during his life that his brother had encouraged him, had fun with him, and helped him become a better person. Barley had always been there for Ian. Now, Ian would return the favor. In the meantime, Barley noticed that the stone from the raven statue fit perfectly in the old fountain. It opened up and a hidden chamber revealed the phoenix gem. Ian returned to help, but suddenly a smoky mist poured out of the fountain. It was the curse. The fire-breathing beast stomped towards Barley. "Run!" he shouted to Ian and Dad. Just then, a dark shape swooped down from the sky. It was the Manticore wielding the Curse Crusher, with Laurel riding on her back. While Laurel and the Manticore battled the dragon, Ian put the Phoenix Gem in place and cast the visitation spell. This caught the dragon's attention. Barley wanted to distract it so Ian could finally meet Dad. "No!" exclaimed Ian. "You say goodbye. I had someone who looked out for me, someone who pushed me to be more than I ever thought I could be. I never had a dad, but I always had you." Ian hit the dragon with a spell, as Laurel tossed the Curse Crusher to him and he plunged it deep into the curse. The dragon exploded in a blinding flash. Suddenly, there was another burst of light. Ian saw Dad fully materializing in front of Barley. Tears filled Ian's eyes as Barley and Dad talked. When the sun set, Dad hugged Barley and then disappeared. Barley told his brother how proud Dad was of Ian. Ian smiled. "Well, I owe an awful lot of that to you." "He kinda said that too," said Barley. "Oh, and he told me to give you this." Barley gave his brother a big hug. This is when I cried so badly. The quest had changed the Lightfoot family. Each of them had discovered things about themselves they haven't known before. And the experience of seeing Dad return, even briefly, had brought the family closer together than ever. No matter what was to come, they would always have each other to lean on. The end. Today is quite a long story, wouldn't you say? I have confirmed that this story is actually according to the movie storyline. It's not a special Christmas themed story, but even that, it's quite fun to read a storybook version of the movie. I'm really touched with the brotherly love of Barley and Ian, and how Ian has given Barley the chance to say last goodbye to the dad. All in all, if you haven't watched this, if you haven't watched this film yet, be sure to watch it and be sure to prepare lots of tissue with you because you're going to be bawling your eyes out. With that, guys, as always, stay safe and healthy, keep your smile up and your heads high, and have a magical and fantastic day ahead. Bye for now, and see you tomorrow.